Okay, so what is NINA? Well, NINA stands for Nighttime Imaging in Astronomy. Nighttime Imaging in Astronomy. You can find it by going to nighttime-imaging.eu. NINA is open source as well as being free, no cost to you. However, they will take donations if you feel like giving them a little thank you for what they're giving us for free, because it's a very powerful program for being free, to be quite honest with you. Off of the main page here, if you go over to the download side, this is where you're going to be able to download the information from. You can get it in the 64-bit as well as 32-bit. And be sure to go down to the bottom here and download the Sky Atlas image repository, which you will need for framing. If you then come over here to documentation, go to nightly. This is going to give you basically your help guides. I will say some of them are good and informative, while some of them are just like everything else, typical in astronomy. It's kind of halfway done. But I think part of the contributing is you can help them be more specific on this. So don't take my word for that, but I would assume or hope that that is the case. However, a lot of the documentation we'll need just to kind of do some rough figuring out where you're at is in here, and to get an idea of how things work. But again, sometimes not all the information is there, but at least tells you what each button does and where it's at. So that's fun. There is also, it covers how to load your Sky Atlas, and it will also cover on your ASTAP, A-S-T-A-P, plate solving. There are two links that you will need to get out of here in order to go download those catalogs and get them. So let's get out of there. Let's then look. Here's NINA. That's popped open. This is not the exact same color and everything that's going to open from you if you downloaded it for the very first time. Real quick, before we kind of get in between that and SGP and how they two compare there. In fact, let me pop that out and go back here. A couple things to know just off the bat. Once it opens like this is the default. If you come down here to options, think of options as being your equipment profile manager in SGP. Equipment profile manager is basically the same thing as options. So under options, under general, this is where you're going to put your Sky Atlas directory. So once it downloads to your Program 86 files, you would just direct it to where you direct this link to where it is actually located within your computer. You can also default your language here for English, Germany, Italian. I guess it's because that's where it's predominantly used. Down here is your settings for latitude and longitude. And then you have one of the most interesting aspects of it right off the bat, and that is you can actually color coordinate or color customize. Unlike SGP, you basically get vanilla frosting, which is gray, or orange. And here in NINA, you can actually choose a preset color if you like, in order to make it easier for you to see or to view. You have all these presets that you're welcome to use. Personally, my favorite is high contrast, which I use at nighttime. There's some white lettering that's on it, like you would see here. However, some people may think this is very jumbled and confusing. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to go with a standard color, which actually will show blocks. So to make it a little bit more user-friendly for you to view. You do, however, also have the opportunity to go in and customize your color scheme if you want to, by choosing the colors for your secondary, your backgrounds, your territories, everything. It's all right here. You're welcome to use it from there. All right, so that's out of the way. SGP, we're an equipment profile manager. We're going to be looking for our camera, our filters, our focus, our telescope, our plate solver, auto guiding, also our Meridian flip. All that information is here in equipment profile manager. Think of options and equipment as being that is the same thing. And once again, we have our camera, our telescope, our focuser, our weather, our filter wheel, and our guider settings. All of this is located here on this tab under equipment, options, equipment, right? When I had my camera plugged in, after I downloaded everything and popped it open, it actually pre-populated a lot of this information for me. What I did have to enter in was the telescope, was my telescope's name, the focal length, because obviously it doesn't know what the OTA is. Under the focuser, a lot of these options popped up on their own, which was quite convenient. The only thing I really did change on it was, I didn't change anything on it, come to think of it. This was all default. The one nice thing, we'll go over that here in a little bit as well, is the backlash in and out, which is a manual procedure in SGP. It is automatic here in NINA. Guider settings, PhD, this is the same as you would do over here in the plate solve, where you're actually doing, or excuse me, where you're doing auto guide. PhD settings, you would then direct it, same exact concept, just fired it off. Same exact concept of what it's going to be here. Let me close that. Of what it's going to be here, you're just directing where it is at. That's it. What else? Okay, go to imaging. So imaging file, you have your settings. You can choose how you want to save your files. You can have the choice of doing it in TIFF, FITS, or XISF. It's your choice. Image file path, this is where you're going to save your information to. So this is going to be similar. Let me close that out. That is going to be similar to your directory here on your main interface page. So that's a little bit of a difference there. You don't have it right up front, but it's the same principle. You would browse, tell it where to save your information to for whatever you're shooting, your files. You would do the same thing here. No different, just different page. Image file patterns. So this is different than what you would do in your equipment profile manager. So usually, depending on how you have things set up, if you want to FITS file your name information into the saving name, you have to pull up the key and then you have to manually type. So %TN, which is target name, underscore. %CG, which is camera gain, underscore, %EL, which is exposure length, blah, 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 right? Well, you don't have to do that in NINA. All you do is double click on what you want it to say. So here's my image type, my camera gain, my exposure time in seconds, and the date. Done. That's it. That's pretty easy. Auto Meridian flip, right here, enabled, 10 minutes past meridian, telescope side of the pier, recenter after flip is all the exact same information you would have. Let me close this. The exact same information that you would have in your telescope setting. Use auto meridian flip, same concept, just a little bit easier. You don't have to deep dive a couple of times into it. Imaging options is debayering, basically. If you're doing a one-shot color camera, it will debayer it for you. It's not going to be perfect, 4K color, but it gives you a good representation of it as opposed to SGP, which just gives you black and white. Sequence template, nothing I've ever messed with. The layout, reset layout concerns this imaging tab where you have all these lined up. If you want to do a quick reset back to factory default, you can just come to the reset layout, click that, and it'll reset everything back to factory default. Plate solving is the same as what you would have over here in the profile manager. Plate solve 2, you would choose, then go in to your settings, and you would have to tell plate solve where to find your catalog directories, which are there. If y'all remember how to do that, it's kind of a pain. It's the same concept here in plate solving for NINA. You have to tell which plate solver you want to use. So if it's plate solve, you're going to have to tell where to go find it, and if it's ASTAP, just pop it in there, and it will pull it that way. NINA recommends that you use ASTAP for it. It is quick, it is precise, it is convenient. I have had multiple times in SGP where my plate solves have failed, especially if I make a movement from, let's just say, from the east over to the west and I didn't plate solve prior to. It may take it a while to figure out where it went. Unlike NINA, its ASTAP plate solve tends to be very top notch in that it just goes. It knows where it's at, and it pops, and it's fast to me. It's just extremely fast. But I would place in here my exposure time, which is 8 seconds. If I wanted to use a particular filter for plate solving, I would put that in there. Here's my less than 5 arc minutes of error, my rotation tolerance, number of attempts, which is 9, and the delay between attempts, which is 1 minute. This is the same thing that you're going to have here. This information right there is the same. Planetarium software. You have the option of connecting up your planetarium software to NINA. I have not done so myself, but it is there. You do have to go into the plugins on your product in order to make them talk to each other. But this is where you would make your connection. So you can tie up into Stellarium, Cartesiel, the SkyX, or Hinsky right there off of Planetarium. So think of options and these 5 tabs up here as being Equipment Profile Manager. That's the difference. Okay, Now, back to the top. On equipment, if when it opens up, it's going to be defaulted to equipment, and then you'll have these icons over here on it just to the right of these. All these are is basically the same thing as these under your equipment. Basically, it's just turning them on. So initially, on your first setup, when you have everything connected, you would go through, you would choose your camera, which actually for mine, since it's not connected, it's not pulling it. But mine will actually pop up ASI 183 MC Pro or 183 MM Pro, depending on which one's connected. It knows the difference and it will pre-populate all this information. That's just to connect it. Same thing with your filter wheel. You would choose your filter wheel, your focuser, which the last one I'm using was the Moonlight, so it automatically knows which focuser it's connected to. Because if it's a Pegasus, it'll default to Pegasus. If it's Moonlight, it defaults to Moonlight. Telescope, that's your telescope driver, your guider, PhD, of course, your switch, which I don't know a lot about, so I actually couldn't comment on that. And then, of course, your weather. So same exact things as you have over here. You have your icons to go into to make actual adjustments on it, which you have the same abilities here. Now, here's the big difference. Unlike SGP, where you got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and click them all on. And I don't know, there may be a way to turn everything on at one time. I'm not sure where that's at, but it's pretty easy for me to find in NINA, and that's this big button down here. If you click on connect, it'll ask you, do you want to reconnect all your devices? So do it all at one time. I'm sure that that's capable of being done here in SGP. I just never knew where to find it. So if it's in there, perhaps you can share and let the rest of us know where that could be located so that we can actually compare apples to apples. All right, so workflow. Basically, if you think about a night, you connect everything up and you get it ready to go, and you want to figure out what you want to shoot. Well, what do you want to shoot? So think of a sky atlas as being the exact same thing as framing a mosaic wizard. So if you go into framing a mosaic wizard, you type in M101 and click fetch. It's going to go and find that on its atlas in order to pull it up for framing. So there it is. In order to frame it, you do a left click, hold drag. That brings your box, and then you center your box wherever you want on the image. If you wanted to do a mosaic, you would come down here to option number 4, and you increase your tiles and then move your tiles around. So that's the way we would do it in SGP. And then from there, we would immediately go to create sequence, and we're there, right? We're there, we're good to go. Now, NINA. Let's go with the same concept. So we're going to type in M101 and then click search. By doing so, it's going to pull it up. In my opinion, it was faster. We get a representation of what the image is, and we get some more information. So going left to right, we get the names M101. If there's a common name associated with it, it may spell that out for you. Not all the time, but it seems to be fairly accurate, as well as an NGC number or Caldwell, or if there's something else associated with that same object. In the middle, you have this nice graph representation. The numbers across the bottom is time. So this is from 12 p.m. to 12 p.m., 24-hour time period. The white being daylight, the gray being twilight or pre-dawn, and then the darker gray in the middle is basically your prime shooting time. That's when you should be photographing this thing. The now selector will be on whatever time it is. So at this time, it's a little after 3 o'clock, coming up on 3:30, it looks like. And then the numbers going up the side is actually the degrees in the sky that the object is rising. So coming off the horizon is 0 degrees. As it comes up, it will hit meridian around 70 degrees and transiting north, and will then proceed back down. So a lot of good information that's right there, in my opinion, if you want to think about it that way. And then from there, we can also set it for framing, which is the same thing as me dragging my box, which we'll go over here in just a minute. I can also immediately set it for a sequence target, which will basically put it right smack dab in the middle of my camera sensor. I don't even have to do any framing. Or I can slew to it and then come back and set that to framing or sequence target, which we'll go over that there in just a minute. Some other quick things on Sky Atlas that you don't have in SGP, just would like to point out. Number one is you get an idea of what your moon phase is. So you're getting your illumination, your moonrise, moonset, dawn, sunrise, sunset, and dusk, which is all a nice feature to have in just one place. I vaguely remember someone telling me that that option was somewhere here, maybe. So we can say apples to apples. No, maybe not. Can't remember. Okay. Anyway, back here. But also too, we get a lot more. So I don't just need to know what I need to go at. I can actually find stuff. So you can actually go in and look for objects specifically. Here's a little caveat. If you want to get that information up, make sure you take out what you've typed in. But if you were to pull up galaxies, click on galaxies, hit search, it's going to pull up all galaxies. So just as for instance, let's back this out. And let's just say, hey, I want to see all the galaxies I can see tonight. Well, guess what, Jack? There you go. Woo! Have fun going through all that. But you know what? If you don't know, now you know. Now you got all the information. And it'll tell you when it's going to come up, when it's going to go down, when you're going to see it, when you're not going to see it, right? So you can do it by object type. Open that back up again. Again, you can vote for bright nebulosity. You can do for dark nebula, diffuse, all that. You have plenty of choices there. You may also look by constellation if you want to see what's going to be available in a particular constellation that's arising. You can be specific with coordinates if you'd like to. You can also check by surface brightness. You can check by apparent size, magnitude, yada, 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 all the way down. You can also put how many hits you have per page. You can deliver by the size. So you can be, there's very specifics you can do here to get exactly what you want, which is, in my opinion, goes past what SGP is able to offer for you. So that's part of the Sky Atlas survey that when you're loading those documents in.